Borderlands 3 has received a very mixed reception, with many praising the improvements that have been made from the previous games in the series, with features such as level scaling, more build variety, more action skills, and improvements to guns and gunplay, and many more. And then it has received flack, no pun intended, for its subpar story, poorly written characters, and poor optimization at launch. That still persists somewhat, at least on PC. Hey guys, what's up? It's Umbruhh here, and today I'm going to be talking about one of my favorite games of 2019, Borderlands 3. Now, I know this game is kind of polarizing, but as a Borderlands fan, it remains one of my favorite games that I've played in a while, and I would probably rank it at number 2 in all of the Borderlands games I enjoy. Of course, Borderlands 2 being my favorite. So, going back to the intro of this video, one of the important things to note about Borderlands 3 is that prior to the game's release on September 13th, 2019, the game had received a large amount of controversy due to some of the actions of Randy Pitchford and Gearbox Software. Some of these include taking down a popular Borderlands YouTuber for talking about leaks that were happening, and most notably its 6-month exclusive deal with the Epic Games Store, which meant it could only be purchased on the Epic Games Store until it was released on Steam on March 13th, 2020. So, from some of the controversies that have occurred before the game released, many gamers were angry at Gearbox Software and Randy Pitchford, and some even boycotted the game altogether. Going to when the game launched. When the game was released, it was pretty well received among critics. I mean, not as well received as Borderlands 2 was, but it did receive positive reviews, whereas the audience reception was a little more mixed, according to Metacritic, the Metacritic used user review scores. People were complaining about the overall bugginess and poor optimization across all consoles, especially PC and original Xbox One. People really despised the story and the villains in comparison to Borderlands 2, with new characters such as Ava or both Tyreen and Troy Calypso, compared to Borderlands 2's Handsome Jack and some of the other characters like Tiny Tina or Ellie. Many just did not like the characters in Borderlands 3. They thought of them as annoying, cringy, and poorly written. And there were people who complained about the game having some SJW influences. Although for me personally, I didn't really see it that much, other than how they handled the whole situation of Flack, where if you misgendered Flack on the forums, they would ban you, which was kind of silly considering Flack is a fictional character. Now, there were some complaints, too, among those being how there was no traditional Borderlands endgame content in 3, like 2 had Terramorphous the Invincible, or Vermivorous the Invincible, or basically raid bosses. And there wasn't really a raid boss in Borderlands 3 until the takedown at Maliwan update in November, which added Wotan the Invincible. Although as someone who has played every single game in the Borderlands franchise since 2010, I really enjoyed Borderlands 3, and I'll be giving some reasons why. So, one of the main complaints of Borderlands 3 was directed at the story, which is definitely understandable. The story could have been a whole lot better. My main issue was how they wasted a lot of characters like Maya, Aurelia, the Calypso twins, more specifically Troy, as they were kind of setting him up to become the main villain and betray Tyreen. It just seemed like it was thrown away at the last minute. However, I don't really think it's as bad as Borderlands 1 and Borderlands the pre-sequel storyline. Although I'm not saying that Borderlands 1 had a bad storyline, I'm just saying it had a very dry and bare bones storyline. Like, most of the storyline was just told through quest texts and brief eclogues by other characters that you barely know. And the pre-sequel storyline was just plain bad, and the dialogue was really cringeworthy and not kind of like stupid funny that Borderlands 2 had. It was just cringeworthy. And the only time I really ever gave a shit about the storyline in Borderlands the pre-sequel was when it's related to Handsome Jack. Now, in Borderlands 3, the story is a lot more coherent than 1, because it actually has a story, and it actually has a lot more cutscenes than 2, and the pre-sequel, where the villains are more present, although not really the best villains. And another problem that Borderlands 3 had was how the villains were handled. Now, after having a character like Handsome Jack be the main antagonist of Borderlands 2, who is without a doubt the best Borderlands villain, and arguably one of the best gaming villains, they really tried to replicate that with Tyreen and Troy Calypso, only for it to just end up with them being really annoying Twitch streamers that try really hard to be charismatic and humorous and just end up looking stupid and immature. Maybe it would have been a better ending if we defeated them by having Troy say the forbidden word on stream. You know, the word that I can't really see. And maybe have Tyreen throw a skag on stream. You know, like actual certain Twitch streamers. And there were some parts of the story that I really enjoyed, such as most of the missions on Promethea, especially seeing my boys Reese and Zero again, especially since I mained Zero back in Borderlands 2, so it was exciting to see him again, and I really enjoyed the Tales from the Borderlands game, also hoping they make a sequel. And the whole corporate war between Atlas and Maliwan was really interesting to see, since Atlas were the bad guys in Borderlands 1, but now they're good. And some of my favorite moments in the game include invading the Holy Broadcast Center and killing Mouthpiece, which I actually got the chance to experience that back at Fan Expo 2019 in Toronto about a month before the game actually came out. Defending Atlas HQ against Maliwan, riding with Maya to fight the Rampager, the whole Penn and Teller cameo, which was really amusing. And the supposed climax of the game where you fight Troy, finally, which wasn't really as enjoyable when he was screaming every fucking second of the fight back when I did it at launch. And character-wise, the game is a huge improvement over Borderlands 2, and especially the Borderlands the pre-sequel. What's awesome this time around is that the new changes to the skill tree has allowed players to have a lot more variety when it comes to making a build for their character. Most notably how skill trees all have their own action skill, meaning each Vault Hunter has at least 3 action skills to choose from respectively. For example, with Zane you have Digiclone, the Sentinel Drone, and the Barrier, and with Zane you can replace grenades with the second action skill. However, for Moze, all of her skill trees more or less have the same action skill where you hop into her Iron Bear mech. However, with each skill tree, you can customize her own gun, making the mech feel different. Overall, the skill system feels a lot more versatile, and the action skills feel a lot more interactive, for lack of a better word, when compared to the pre-sequel. Combat-wise, too, the game has also improved vastly compared to Borderlands 2, with movement mechanics common in other FPS games such as sliding and climbing, and most notably the new rework for weapon brands in Borderlands 3, where each gun manufacturer has its own cool and unique quirks to them, and a lot of them feel different too. For example, with the doll weapons you can switch between auto, burst, and semi-auto, depending on the gun, and Hyperion weapons give you a shield each time you aim down the sights, and the gunplay feels a lot more smooth and snappy compared to its predecessors, which really helps improve the experience for what the game is. A game where you shoot the crap out of psychopathic midgets, and Diablo with guns. Some of my other favorite things about Borderlands 3 that I want to list off includes level scaling, which allows you to play with your friends regardless of your level. And so basically, let's say you wanted to play with your friend who's level 23, but you're only level 14. You can just jump into a game with him and play with him without having to worry about dying constantly. That is, if he has it on. And also the fact that the game now has loot instancing. So like, let's say you're in a game with your friend and you have loot instancing turned on. You both get your own separate instance of loot, which is really nice, although you can also turn this off too. Another thing too is all the new planets to explore, which really help add more location variety, although that being said, most of the zones in Pandora look the same and kind of boring, and it's sad that Athenas is only one zone. And I really enjoy how they expand upon the idea of raid bosses and made full-on raids, or I guess dungeons, for lack of a better word. In Borderlands 3, they have something new called takedowns, which are very similar to the strikes or raids if you've ever played either Destiny 1 or Destiny 2. And now there are a lot more legendary weapons in the game. For example, in Borderlands 2 at launch, most legendary weapons only had one assault rifle or one SMG for each manufacturer. So basically one weapon type per manufacturer mostly, except for maybe two, depending on the kind. Like, let's say, for example, the only Vladov assault rifle that was legendary, I think, was the Shred-Fire. Whereas in Borderlands 3, there are multiple assault rifles or SMGs for each manufacturer, so there are a lot more now. So like, let's say for Hyperion, there's multiple legendary Hyperion shotguns that were added at launch, like the Brainstormer, the Butcher, and the Conference Call. And a lot of these features really help me enjoy Borderlands 3, and I think it's just made such a huge improvement over to gameplay-wise, at least. Not so much story-wise. In conclusion, Borderlands 3 is by no means a perfect game, and it does have a ton of flaws. But story aside, it's made a ton of improvements from Borderlands 2 which have helped made this game a really enjoyable experience for what it is. And it's been one of my favorite games to play lately. Gotta keep yourself busy somehow during quarantine. Anyways, guys, I hope you all enjoyed this video. Comment down below what are your thoughts on Borderlands 3, whether or not you enjoyed it, and subscribe for more gaming videos. I primarily make Final Fantasy XIV videos, although I love to make other gaming content too. Be sure to follow me on Twitter and Twitch, and I will see you guys later. You guys are awesome. Umbruhh, out.